Okay, so here we are back in Houdini, and this is the actual file I rendered. As I mentioned, it will be included for you as a reference, but we will try to construct this from scratch using only the geometry and cameras that are present in this file. And first of all, when you open your scene, you may receive this warning if you don't have Redshift installed. I did render the final animation using Redshift simply because it's a very fast render and it also has a very nice quality. Although I did render the volume separately with Arnold. But in the end, what's important is that you're able to create your VDBs or your particle systems. The final render engine will mainly depend on what you have installed, on how much time you have to render, or even on the budget for your project. That being said, Mantra is an excellent renderer. I just personally think it's sometimes a bit slow in comparison, especially with renderers like Redshift or Octane. So let's close this warning. We won't have to worry about that anymore. And I have divided my nodes here in several groups. First of all, the lights and cameras. So this Redshift light you can ignore. I also added a temporal Houdini light just to be able to better see my geometry while I was modeling and creating my volumes. I have two cameras. Camera 1 was the final rendering camera, and camera 2 just gave me a different view closer to the building. Here I have all the nodes related to both the ocean simulation and the whitewater simulation, but these we will be creating on our exercise. Here to the far left I have a few helpers. First of all, the path which I used to animate the missile. I also created a generic collider for the terrain and also a collider object for the building. And here to the right I have the geometry itself. So first of all, the building was completely created within Houdini. Let me dive inside the node. And here you will find all the elements that are conforming the building. First of all, the concrete and glass. Also some metal parts like the AC ducts and some electrical stuff. Then we have this dome covering the building. I also modeled these columns, and we also have these cables that are attaching the columns to the dome. Now down here what I'm doing is separating the building in different types of elements like glass, concrete, some accessories and furniture. Then I'm fracturing all these pieces. And finally, I'm caching all these pieces with the RBD.io node. And this is one of two caches that I will provide. This first cache is the fractured building. And another cache that you will be provided with is the points generated from the rigid body dynamic simulation. So these points will be driving the pieces or the fractured pieces of the building. So this way you will have these falling pieces, and we will be able to use this fractured building to collide with the water surface. If you want to reverse engineer how this was made, you can always go into these nodes, and I do recommend you to dive into these nodes and take a look at all the modeling tools that I used. You may find some useful tools or interesting ways of creating things. So I will go back to my object context. So here you will also find the ocean surface, and this ocean surface was created using a few ocean spectrums. So again, you can dive in here and deconstruct how this was made. I also have the terrain that was created using height fields. And I also modeled a missile. So this is the actual geometry. I'm just transforming it and then animating using some constraints through the trail. And here to the right we have the volumes. This first one is a missile trail. Then we have the actual explosion. We have the dust coming from the building. We also have the avalanche, so let me turn these off and turn on the avalanche. And finally I created some mist for the water splash. So the mist was done after the white water and the flip simulation. I just used the white water particles to emit a volume. And we also have the result from our flip simulation. And of course down here we have our white water. Okay, so I think we're now ready to start the actual exercise.